The Canadian Taxpayers Federation did an in-depth report about how much our provincial politicians are paid in Canada compared to lawmakers in the United States, and the results will shock you. Here to give us the details about this and other grievances of Canadian taxpayers is Kris Simms. She's the Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Welcome back to Bridge City News, Kris. Great to see you.
So nice to see you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Kris, it's one I bet most Canadians won't be able to believe or wrap their heads around, but when comparing politicians' pay between provinces and states, Manitoba MLAs were paid more than double the average American state rep. I find this outrageous and frankly a little hard to believe, but you guys did the research.
Yeah, we did. So my colleague, the Ontario Director for the Taxpayers Federation, Noah, he did a great deep dive. And what blew my mind was that it wasn't just Manitoba. It wasn't just Saskatchewan. It wasn't just Nova Scotia. Pretty much every politician provincially in Canada is paid more than their colleagues in the States, with the exception of huge states like California or New York. Politicians, pound for pound, provincially, are paid about double what their state representative would otherwise be paid. It is stunning.
So these are members of the House of Representatives.
Yeah,
so congressmen and congressmen
at their state legislators. So where we have, so here in Alberta, we've got our folks up in Edmonton, in Saskatchewan, they're in Regina. So similarly, in a state capital, if you go into those buildings and find out how much they're paid, on average, get this, it's around $57,000 or $58,000 a year in the States. Up here, it's about $113,000, obviously, compared to the exchange rate. Like we factored all of that in.
You did. Because I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, for sure. No, this is not the exchange rate. So this is really stunning to us because, again, as we know, taxpayers in Canada, nearly half of our incomes are taken by taxes. And then you turn around and take a look at politician pay. They're paid way more here in Canada than they are in the United States.
Okay. How did it get to this point, Kris? And how does it get fixed, I guess?
Great question. So a few things. Quite often when we'll point this out, which frankly we should point out more often. Good job on Noah digging this up. When we point this out, they get really twitchy, the politicians in Canada, real fast. And they say something like, oh, well, you have to pay for good talent. And you have to pay for outcome. Two things. Number one, we got into this situation where politicians provincially are paid well over $100,000 each per year in Canada because we've let it happen largely through, I would argue, the kind of professionalization of politics. So we get these folks who are going to university and they're getting their undergrad in public policy and they're getting their master's in, I don't know, how to be a staffer. And then they think this is a career for life, whereas it never used to be that way. And it's still not that way in most American states. Most of the time, it is a retired police officer, a retired teacher, a small business person who is a public servant. That's where that term comes from, public service. Now, unfortunately, Jeanette, it's become just pay up here in Canada.
Yeah, and I would imagine these politicians in Canada think that maybe we're getting better service.
No, great question. We actually looked at the wealth per capita, and the chart looks like this. So, for example, if you take a look at Texas, they're paid around 90% less, 90% less than the average provincial politician. Meanwhile, everybody's, per person, per capita, wealth, the GDP is off the charts in Texas. And they've got what? Natural resources. Well, Canada has tons of those too. We should be doing so much better for our people, and we should frankly be paying our politicians much less.
Yeah, I'm sure the U.S. would argue they should be paid more.
Oh, sure. Well, and then they try to get elected on that, right?
Yes.
And this is where I would encourage people in our own polite Canadian way. We should push back on this because we should make this an election issue, all of us, the voters, because the politicians aren't going to bring it up. It's up to us to bring up their pay scale next time the vote comes around.
Let's talk about pipelines. It's been in the news a whole lot, especially here in Alberta. So these announcements coming out of Alberta, that Alberta and Ottawa and even Ontario, these pipelines are pretty splashy with lots of neat names and lots of promises. But what are some of the concrete details here? Do we have dates and deals and times?
Great question. So yeah, unfortunately, no, we don't have dates. We have timelines, time frames ish. So the one out of Alberta that they're planning to, again, no deals have been signed. Like they're not in the ground, shovels aren't in the ground. But if it happens, they envision this traveling along the Trans Mountain Pipeline corridor, which already exists. I'm literally standing right next to one right now. It runs through Hope, British Columbia, all the way out from Edmonton. And so that might be wise. The issue, though, that we're taking as the Taxpayers Federation is the money. So private companies should be banging our door down to spend private company money to build pipelines. But we got a hold of the documents from the provincial government of Alberta, and they're estimating around $44 billion with a B, with only a 10% private stake in this. So I really wanted to flag those two numbers because you'll hear politicians say, oh, it's a public-private partnership. 90% of this is on the shoulders of taxpayers.
Yeah, because they've now scared away all the investors.
You nailed it.
So yeah, a lot of this is on the taxpayers' shoulders. I guess just playing devil's advocate here, why shouldn't taxpayers pay for these? Don't pipelines make money?
That's a legit question. And it's something that Premier Danielle Smith was asked to. And if I'm just going to get a little personal here, I like Premier Danielle Smith. I think she likes pipelines. But I'm surprised to see her championing this now. I don't think that the talk show host, Danielle Smith, would be happy with this, with taxpayers having to foot the bill. We know she's not, because she was pushing, to her credit, for a long time for Ottawa to get rid of its red tape, to get rid of its regulations, to stop strangling pipelines in order to attract private investment. So credit where it is due. We know she was fighting hard against that stuff, but we shouldn't call this a win if it's 90% on taxpayers. But what she answered, to your point of don't they make money, she said that right now, the current Trans Mountain Pipeline, the one that we spent close to $40 billion on, that it is making royalties of roughly $1 billion a year. Okay, we did the math. And if they truly went ahead with this current one that they're planning of $44 billion, just the interest alone on that cost is $1 billion a year.
Wow.
So where's the profit?
Yeah. So you're saying 90% of this is going to be on taxpayers' shoulders. What does that look like? How much will this cost taxpayers?
Yeah. So if you do 90% and it's $44 billion, you're looking at over $40 billion. And again, this is this. Everybody hold on to your wallets. This is a government estimate. We know that they always go over their own estimates. So this is why I'm still hoping. I'll put it this way. I'm hoping that with all of these press conferences they're doing, standing there kissing babies with the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, and the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, that maybe this might ring the dinner bell again for private companies. This actually might prime the pump. This is my hope, that we might actually get private investors coming back, because maybe this will be the change that we're hoping to see. But regulation-wise, we're not seeing it yet out of Ottawa. So we're trying to stay hopeful, but really wanting to sound the alarm bell. But this is an awful lot of taxpayers' money.
Oh, boy. Let's change gears here.
Okay.
Literally, it's summertime, and that means road trips to the mountains, the beaches, our favorite national parks. Lots of folks out there hitting the road this time of year. So what are we paying for in gas taxes nowadays?
Great question. Here in Alberta, we should be getting a gas tax cut. I will point that out. So depending on where you are, places like Vancouver, which is a couple of hours away from me right now, I just took a look at the price of gas. It's like around $2 right now.
In Vancouver. Okay.
Yeah, which is great in Vancouver. But in regular parts of British Columbia, to give you an example, it's around $1.85, $1.90. That's around, I took pictures of the gas pumps before I left Alberta. That's around 20-ish or 18 cents-ish difference from Alberta. That's because they have the hidden second carbon tax still here in British Columbia. So generally speaking, folks in Vancouver and generally in BC will be paying more this summer. Folks in Alberta will be paying less than that, but not as little as we could, because the provincial government was supposed to remove its 13 cent per liter on gasoline and diesel tax. And as you know, it didn't. Instead, it trotted out this $100 rebate instead. So depending on where you're filling up, it could be anywhere between $20 and $40 per fill up is taxes every time you fill up. I know.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
So that's why you think that provinces should cut gas taxes instead of just giving out these rebates, right?
Yeah.
Chris? Okay.
Yeah, because then everybody saves money, right? Including truckers and delivery people and stuff like that. And they don't need to, do the square sign over the hypotenuse on the website to go try to get $100. They should have just cut the taxes.
Yeah. So why haven't premiers dropped their fuel taxes then?
If I were a betting lady, I'd say it's to save money for the Treasury, right? I was seeing, now I have not confirmed this myself, but I was seeing online reports that only a few 100,000 people in Alberta have signed up for that rebate. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Right? So, and we've got way more than a few 100,000 drivers in Alberta. We've got millions of people in the province.
Do you know where to go to sign up for that, Chris?
Yes. In fact, I feel weird telling people to go to a government website, but go to the Government of Alberta's website, right? And there's a little portal click link. Click on that. Now you need to give your data, like of who you are and your address and everything, but hey, this is your money. And it's $100 each. And so if you're a 2-person working household, that's $200 that you and your spouse could use, or you and your living partner could use.
Yes,
it's your
thanks
money.
For the reminder, Chris.
Go do it. It's your money, folks. Don't feel bad like you're not taking out of the Treasury. This is your money that they owed you based on how they were promising it.
That's right. They've got the fuel taxes up, so we might as well get these rebates.
Exactly. Get it where you can.
Exactly. Chris, I know that we've touched on this one a little bit. I mean, obviously, summertime, people are traveling. Somebody else has been traveling lately. Our Prime Minister, who dropped 160 grand on airplane food during one trip. So tell me, what on earth did he order in this one trip?
Oh my gosh, there was I think it was sea bass, and there was all sorts of stuff that sounded super fancy. Some of it I can't even pronounce. And before people start thinking, oh, well, wasn't that Trudeau? Wasn't he the guy, the Prime Minister who spent all the money on airplane food? Yes and no. Yes, it was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that was blowing $200,000 on airplane food, including beef carpaccio and other stuff that I couldn't pronounce. But this is what was so surprising to me, and I actually am stumped. Prime Minister Mark Carney is spending more money than Trudeau on airplane food. In a apples to apples comparison, where Trudeau had gone overseas just a couple of years ago to a trip to Rome. He spent a certain amount. Carney did the same trip. Double. He spent double on, this is in-flight catering.
Does he have more people on the flight with him?
And this isn't including, I have to stress, this is not including security. People are always oh, well, it's the Prime Minister flying. You can't have him hanging off the back of a WestJet tail. We get that part. You can't just eat peanuts. But come on, why is it more than 100 grand for one trip for in-flight catering? And so again, because Prime Minister Mark Carney has encouraged everyone to make sacrifices, this is where we're saying, guys,
he should be the first one to make sacrifices and be an example.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's be real here. It would be very simple, to give you an example, for the Prime Minister and his entourage and staff to even go to a fancy place, go to the Keg and get really fancy steak takeout and just carry it on the plane with you. If this is such a problem.
It's not going to cost 160 grand.
If you tried, could you pay
spend that much?
Spend that much. Are they rolling in lobster? I don't understand.
Oh, yes. We're out of time here, but Kris Simms, Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, great to have you with us once again.
Likewise, I'll see you in studio soon.